So let us start a discussion on how we can cooperate to address the challenges of multilinguality in Europe.
One question that in a way applies here, but could have applied to some of the presentations yesterday as well, is how is the European Union looking at dealing with the languages of the millions of newcomers to the European Union, whether they're refugees or immigrants? Depending on which statistics we read, there are somewhere between 3 and 5 million such new persons in the EU each year, and the numbers seem to be increasing. And I recall from some presentations that I've heard, for example, in the United Kingdom, that having to deal with the languages of these immigrant groups is effectively taking a rather big toll on public services there. And it would seem that at some point the European institutions will have to tackle that problem as well, and I haven't heard anybody address it, and I thought it might be a good time to ask this question now, or at least as good a time as any. Thank you.
It's on.
It's on, okay. There's a very good question, and I don't think it's one we have an answer to at the moment. I think some of the member states are much more advanced than the EU as a whole at dealing with the language of newcomers. The UK you mentioned as an example, and I think there's a lot we can learn from there. However, having said that, as translation services, which are what we represent here, we do have the possibility of translating into the other languages by using agencies, and that's the way we work for the moment. Until we can resolve the situation fully of translating into the 23 official languages, it's hard to expand to the non-official languages in the first place. I'm thinking of things like the Spanish regional languages, languages like Welsh, which have a large population. But yeah, we really do need to look in the future at how do we then deal with languages which are not covered by that. So I hope we have the answer in the future. Maybe machine translation might help.
Yes, I mentioned that we are discussing with different end users other than translators of machine translation. And among them we have the people responsible in the Commission for the migration policy. So this could come into discussion. At this stage, it's not on our list of issues, but I mean, this is certainly something that will we will try probably to solve using machine translation as well. Okay, but there is nothing at this stage available.
Yes, please.
Can you say more about the connection between your unit and the unit doing research on those technologies, the one of Roberto Cencioni? So is there, are you giving input to that unit so that the research that funded by the European Commission is also geared toward your needs?
The short answer is yes. The longer answer is that we are contributing only. That is, we are one of the users, of the potential users. That's why I mentioned that we play this role also in some research projects or CIP projects where we can test the solutions that are proposed. Now, in terms of internal collaboration in the Commission, we are working closely together. We have regular coordination meetings with Roberto and Kimo and the team. And there is this, at this stage, a lack of clarity, I would say, in terms of what is research, what is deployment, how much of the research we can use for our practical purposes. Should we go to deployment, but then deployment activities like the ones funded by SIP are market-oriented and not really oriented towards public institutions. And so there are these complexities. But as I mentioned, we are working we're partners in Multilingual Web Thematic Network. We're working with Informatics Plus. We're looking into, we're working with Let's MT. We're looking into what Panacea, FlareNet, all this, we're following a wide range of projects, let's say.
Would you consider providing a few test sets that could be used for the research by the research community to evaluate or organize evaluation campaigns on your needs?
We had I think it was a full afternoon discussion with Euromatrix Plus last February to organize this, the forthcoming marathon built around this. But we finally did not go into the implementation for reasons having to do with our side mainly. Okay, so we can, at this stage, that's why I mentioned what we deliver in the public domain. And now the whole discussion is what would an additional data set coming from our internal translation memories, which practically have the same type of language, the same terminology, add to this huge resource. This, and we cannot convince internally our legal advisors and our other colleagues that it would really be worth the effort. Okay.
It's an interesting issue. Next comment.
The question directed towards Conrad. So on 2 slides.
Excuse me, can we have the microphone on?
It should be on, yes. So you had on 2 slides 2 pieces of information which I wonder about. One was the structure where actually translation and interpretation are 2 separate parts, right? And the other one is that then actually one of the action items or the projects going on is teleworking. So I wonder, given that so much effort is going on the direction of text translation, what actually is going on to support interpreting, speech translation, and so on, and is there somewhere a common ground?
Okay, thank you for raising the question. The reason for showing you the structure at the beginning was to try and make it clear that the efforts that we're doing within our language technology watch are aimed at translation rather than interpreting. The interpreters also have a language technology watch. So they have a similar structure. That's not to say that any work that we do won't flow into interpreting as well. And when we look at existing projects which we've been working on, such as IATIS, such as Quest, these projects have been used by interpreters as well. So the work that we're doing within our language technology watch is aimed primarily at translators, but the benefits may well later be used by interpreters as well. But they're also looking at things like the speech technologies separately. Okay. Yeah, sure.
Just to add one thing, in the Commission there is a new initiative taken by the Directorate of DG IMSO, where Roberto Cencioni is heading the unit, to try and see the needs of both interpretation and translation. Okay, so we had the first meeting and it was impressive what was the amount of resources that are available for interpretation which were not known to the text translation world and have not been used and have not been mentioned there and promoted in the calls of FP7 and language technologies. Okay, so I would say that by the end of the year or beginning of next year, we will have some news coming from Cencioni.
Okay.
Roberto.
Hans?
Yeah, 2 brief remarks, if I may make them that. The question, of course, between the relationship of research that came up here and the parts of the European Union, the European Commission who work on research and the users is very important. That I can say from experience that the cooperation has been not just fruitful, but extremely pleasant between research and this user. It has not been a typical user, not the user, the large-scale user that we normally have. People from the DGT have participated even in the hands-on development, further development of Moses in the machine translation marathons. They have been present at all the major research meetings. Our people were invited to some of the planning meetings from research, and some specialists in the group of Roberto Cencioni, especially Kimorose, but others have really worked in trying to bridge it. And one last remark maybe, but the JRC, the work on the data that could be really important for our field, the work with the JRC and MetaNet is now strongly connected because we signed a collaboration agreement with JRC, so that JRC would serve as one of the data centers in MetaShare. And so that can really be, so now this triangle in cooperation can really be extremely fruitful. Getting data from European Commission via the JRC and then get it distributed under certain conditions via MetaShare.
Okay, that's very positive news. I think we have to move along to the final comment.
I'd just like to address a question about what about rule-based and statistical-based MTs? Have that been discussed in your new project? Because some translators tend to say that when you work with a certain kind or type of text, rule-based MT is best, and if you work with another kind, statistically based MT is better. And also developers themselves tend to say there could be some differences in quality of the output.
Yeah, as I mentioned, we're agnostic. We try to find the best solution for its use and context of use. We started with Moses for different reasons. Also, as I mentioned, because we had the luck to have some translators who developed the Moses for mere mortals, and we had some internal knowledge. We had the contacts with Informatics Plus. We knew, I mean, the issue, we could handle this technology. And also, looking around, we saw that everybody was using Moses, so why not the Commission who has funded part of it? Okay, so now, but we are looking into other solutions. I mentioned Apertium, but we are in contact with commercial providers looking into what they're doing. We're running pilots from time to time, but much less this year than in the past. So if we find a way to identify what's the best solution for translating a specific text, this for us, ideally, it could be in the dispatcher. You say, if we can analyze the text and say, yeah, for this text, you take this engine. Why not? But we're not there yet. And I have to admit that one of the most promising developments I see is this confidence estimation and identifying the best, either the best MT output of different systems or the best system to produce the output for what you want, and just giving an indication to the user how much he or she can trust the output. I mean, these are the tools that will be built around machine translation that will foster take-up by the translators, I think, and by end users.
Okay, thank you for a very good discussion, and I would like to conclude the session by thanking our speakers once again.